The dark clouds unleashed a torrential downpour as Karen Wilkins, the ruthless president of the Oakwood Homeowners Association, stormed across the rain-soaked cul-de-sac. Her beady eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring with rage, as she marched up the driveway of her latest target, the defiant homeowner, Emily Sinclair. "This ends now, Emily," Karen shouted, her voice dripping with venom as she brandished a thick stack of violation notices. "You think you can defy the HOA and get away with it?" Emily emerged from the shadows, her expression cool and calculated. "I'm not the one breaking the rules, Karen. You're the one illegally blocking my driveway with your precious guest parking signs." The two women squared off, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. Karen's lips curled into a sinister grin. "Oh, this is far from over. I have the full power of the HOA behind me. You'll regret the day you crossed me, Emily Sinclair." With that, she pivoted on her heel and stormed off, leaving Emily alone in the silent, rain-soaked cul-de-sac. But Emily's mind was already racing, formulating a plan to take down the corrupt HOA once and for all. The next morning, Emily rose early, her steely determination fueling her every step. She marched down to the city planning office, armed with a folder full of documents and a gleam in her eye. "I need to file an emergency petition to have my driveway declared a public road," she told the bewildered clerk, her voice calm and assured. The clerk stammered, taken aback by her confidence. But that's highly unusual. The HOA controls all the streets and private roads in this neighborhood." Emily leaned in, her gaze unwavering. "I'm well aware of that. That's why I need to get my driveway reclassified as a public thoroughfare, beyond the HOA's jurisdiction." The clerk hesitated, sensing the gravity of the situation. This could trigger a major legal battle with the HOA. "Are you sure you want to go down this path?" Emily's eyes narrowed. "Absolutely. I'm done playing by their rules. It's time to fight fire with fire." With that, the clerk began the process, setting in motion a series of events that would shake the very foundations of the Oakwood Homeowners Association. As the day wore on, Emily monitored the progress of her petition, her nerves on edge. She knew that Karen and the HOA would stop at nothing to maintain their grip on the community, and she was prepared for a fight. Late that evening, just as Emily was about to retire for the night, her phone rang. It was the city planner, his voice hushed and urgent. "Miss Sinclair, I've got some troubling news. The HOA has caught wind of your petition, and they're mobilizing to block it. They're threatening to call an emergency board meeting and vote to have your driveway declared private property." Emily's heart raced, but her resolve only grew stronger. "I expected as much. Tell me what I need to do." The planner hesitated, then continued, "You'll need to act fast. They're calling the emergency meeting first thing in the morning. If you can get your driveway reclassified before then, it may throw a wrench in their plans." Emily nodded, her mind already whirring with strategy. "Consider it done. Thanks for the heads up." As she hung up the phone, Emily knew that the stakes had never been higher. The battle lines were drawn, and the fate of her driveway, and her entire neighborhood, hung in the balance. The first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains as Emily Sinclair sprang into action. She had mere hours to secure her driveway's reclassification before the HOA's emergency meeting, and she was determined to not let them win. Grabbing her laptop, Emily furiously began researching local zoning laws and municipal codes. She needed to find the loophole, the backdoor that would allow her to bypass the HOA's stranglehold on the neighborhood's infrastructure. After hours of scouring through dense legal documents, Emily's eyes finally landed on a glimmer of hope. A little-known statute that allowed for the reclassification of private driveways as public thoroughfares in certain circumstances. "Bingo," she murmured, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. Without wasting a moment, she drafted her petition and gathered the necessary supporting documents. Time was of the essence. Emily raced down to City Hall, bursting through the doors just as the municipal offices were opening for the day. The clerk from the previous day's encounter greeted her, a mix of surprise and trepidation in his eyes. "Miss Sinclair, I assume you're here about your driveway petition?" he asked cautiously. "You bet I am," Emily replied, her voice brimming with confidence. "I've got everything I need to get this reclassification processed, and I need it done before the HOA's emergency meeting this morning." The clerk's eyes widened as he scanned the documents. "This is highly irregular, but given the circumstances, I'll do my best to expedite the process." As the clerk hurried off to consult with his superiors, Emily paced the lobby, her nerves jangling. She knew that Karen and the HOA would stop at nothing to derail her plans. The fate of her home and the entire neighborhood hung in the balance. After what felt like an eternity, the clerk returned, a look of both triumph and trepidation on his face. "Miss Sinclair, I've managed to get your petition approved. Your driveway is now officially classified as a public thoroughfare, beyond the HOA's jurisdiction." Emily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you," she said, her voice heavy with relief. "Now let's see what Karen and her cronies have to say about that." As Emily raced back home, the sound of her tires crunching against the wet pavement, she couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. She had landed the first blow in what was sure to be an all-out war with the Oakwood Homeowners Association. But she knew that the battle was far from over. The air in the Oakwood Community Center was thick with tension as the members of the HOA board filed in, their faces etched with a mix of fury and determination. Karen Wilkins, the HOA's ruthless president, stood at the head of the table, her eyes narrowed to slits. "This emergency meeting is now in session," she announced, her voice dripping with authority. "We have a serious situation on our hands, and it's time to take drastic action." Karen launched into a detailed account of Emily Sinclair's driveway reclassification, her words laced with venom. "This is an unacceptable attack on the very foundation of our community. We cannot allow a single homeowner to undermine the authority of the HOA." The board members murmured in agreement, their expressions grim. "I've already consulted with our legal team," Karen continued, "and they've identified a few options we can pursue to regain control of the situation." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "First, we'll file an immediate appeal to have the driveway reclassification revoked. We've got the resources to fight this in court for as long as it takes." The board members nodded, their faces resolute. "Secondly," Karen said, "we need to send a clear message to the rest of the community. I propose we impose a severe fine on Emily Sinclair, one that will serve as a warning to anyone else who dares to defy the HOA." A wave of murmurs and nods rippled through the room. "And finally," Karen concluded, her voice lowering to a menacing tone, "if all else fails, we may need to consider more drastic measures." The unspoken threat hung in the air, leaving the board members shifting uncomfortably in their seats. As the meeting adjourned, Karen strode out of the community center, her mind racing with contingency plans. She would not let Emily Sinclair's defiance go unchallenged. The HOA's grip on Oakwood was absolute, and she would do whatever it took to maintain that control. Unbeknownst to Karen, Emily had been monitoring the meeting from the shadows, her expression a mix of triumph and concern. She knew that the HOA was about to unleash the full force of its resources against her, but she was determined to stand her ground. "Bring it on, Karen," Emily murmured, her eyes narrowing. "I'm not going down without a fight." The stage was set for an epic battle, with the fate of the entire Oakwood community hanging in the balance. The rain had long since stopped, but the air in the Oakwood neighborhood remained heavy with tension. Emily Sinclair sat at her kitchen table, her brow furrowed as she pored over a stack of legal documents. "Okay, let's see what we're up against," she muttered, her fingers tracing the fine print. As she delved deeper into the HOA's bylaws and local zoning codes, a plan began to take shape in Emily's mind. She knew that Karen and the board were pulling out all the stops to regain control of her driveway, but she was determined to outmaneuver them at every turn. Grabbing her phone, Emily quickly dialed her trusted friend and attorney, Sarah Linden. "Sarah, it's Emily. I need your help. The HOA is about to unleash hell on me, and I need to be one step ahead of them." Sarah's voice was calm and assured. "Tell me what you've got, and let's see what we can do." Over the next few hours, Emily and Sarah worked tirelessly, piecing together a multi-pronged legal strategy to defend Emily's newfound public driveway status. They uncovered a web of loopholes, technicalities, and obscure laws that could potentially derail the HOA's efforts. "This is risky, Emily," Sarah warned, her brow furrowed. "You're essentially fighting fire with fire, and the HOA has deep pockets and a team of ruthless lawyers." Emily's jaw tightened. "I don't have a choice, Sarah. If I don't stand my ground now, the HOA will only continue to tighten its grip on this community. I'm done playing by their rules." With a sigh, Sarah nodded. "All right then, let's get to work." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily and Sarah finalized their strategy, their resolve hardening with each passing moment. They knew that the battle ahead would be fierce, but they were ready to face the challenge head-on. The next morning, Emily woke early, her heart racing with a mix of anxiety and determination. She quickly dressed and headed to City Hall, her briefcase in hand. As she strode through the doors, she was met by a familiar face, the clerk who had processed her driveway reclassification. His expression was a mix of concern and admiration. "Miss Sinclair, I've been expecting you. The HOA's lawyers arrived first thing this morning, demanding an emergency hearing to overturn your petition." Emily's lips curled into a confident smile. "Well then, I guess we'd better get started. I've got a few surprises of my own for them." The stage was set for a high-stakes showdown, with the future of the Oakwood community hanging in the balance. The air in the City Hall conference room was thick with tension as Emily Sinclair and the HOA's team of lawyers faced off, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. Karen Wilkins, the HOA president, sat at the head of the table, her expression a mask of barely contained fury. She had hoped to steamroll over Emily's driveway reclassification with a swift legal maneuver, but the defiant homeowner had clearly come prepared for a fight. "This is an outrageous abuse of power," Karen spat, her voice dripping with venom. "The HOA has maintained control over the streets and private roads in Oakwood for decades, and we have no intention of letting a single homeowner undermine that authority." Emily leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "The law is on my side, Karen. My driveway is now a public thoroughfare, beyond the HOA's jurisdiction. Any attempt to reverse that decision will be met with fierce legal resistance." The HOA's lead attorney, a sharp-eyed man named Charles Blackwood, cleared his throat. "We beg to differ, Ms. Sinclair. Our research has uncovered several technicalities and loopholes in the reclassification process that we believe will allow us to have your petition overturned." He produced a thick stack of documents, his fingers drumming on the table. "For starters, there are questions about the validity of the zoning statute you used. We believe it was improperly applied in this case." Emily's expression remained calm, but her mind was racing. She knew that Blackwood and his team were skilled legal tacticians, and they had likely spent countless hours poring over every possible angle to undermine her case. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm well aware of the challenges you're prepared to throw at us," Emily replied, her voice steady. "But I can assure you, my team and I have anticipated your every move." She reached into her briefcase and pulled out her own set of documents, meticulously organized and tabbed. "We've combed through the municipal code with a fine-toothed comb, and we've uncovered several precedents and loopholes that will make it virtually impossible for you to overturn my driveway's reclassification." The HOA's lawyers exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence seemingly shaken. Emily leaned back in her chair, a faint smile playing on her lips. "So, shall we get started? I'm ready to defend my rights as a homeowner in this community." The battle lines had been drawn, and the fate of the Oakwood neighborhood hung in the balance. As the hearing commenced, The air crackled with the electricity of a high-stakes confrontation, with neither side willing to back down. The air in the City Hall conference room was thick with tension as the hearing progressed, with Emily Sinclair and the HOA's legal team engaging in a fierce battle of wits and legal maneuvering. Emily had come prepared, armed with a meticulously crafted defense that seemed to neutralize every argument the HOA's lawyers presented. Blackwood and his team grew increasingly frustrated, their confidence visibly shaken. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a well-dressed man strode in, his expression grave. "Excuse me, but I'm afraid I have some urgent news that may affect the proceedings." The man introduced himself as the city's chief legal counsel, and his words immediately commanded the attention of everyone in the room. "It has come to our attention that the HOA may have engaged in some questionable activities related to the maintenance and oversight of the neighborhood's infrastructure," the counsel continued, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the HOA representatives. Karen Wilkins, the HOA president, shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face a mask of barely contained panic. "What exactly are you implying?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The counsel's expression remained impassive. "We've uncovered evidence that suggests the HOA has been diverting funds earmarked for road maintenance and public services into its own coffers, effectively shortchanging the residents of Oakwood." A collective gasp rippled through the room as the gravity of the accusations sank in. "This is an outrageous accusation," Blackwood interjected, his face flushed with indignation. "The HOA has always acted in the best interests of the community, and we have the financial records to prove it." The counsel raised a hand, silencing the HOA's lawyer. "That may be so, but we have reason to believe that those financial records have been tampered with. We're launching a full investigation into the HOA's activities, and until that investigation is complete, we cannot in good conscience allow the HOA to continue exercising control over the neighborhood's infrastructure." Emily sat back, her mind racing. This twist in the proceedings had thrown the entire hearing into chaos, and she couldn't help but feel a surge of cautious optimism. "So what does this mean for my driveway?" she asked, her voice calm and measured. The counsel turned to her, a faint smile on his lips. "It means, Ms. Sinclair, that your driveway will remain classified as a public thoroughfare, at least for the time being. The city is taking direct control of all road maintenance and oversight in Oakwood until the investigation is concluded." Karen Wilkins shot to her feet, her face contorted with rage. "This is an outrage. You can't do this." But the counsel's expression remained impassive. "I'm afraid we can, and we will. The well-being of the Oakwood community is our top priority." As the hearing adjourned, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The tables had turned, and now it was the HOA that was on the defensive. But she knew that the battle was far from over, and that Karen and her cronies would stop at nothing to regain their stranglehold on the neighborhood. The streets of Oakwood were eerily quiet in the aftermath of the explosive City Hall hearing. Emily Sinclair sat at her kitchen table, her brow furrowed as she pored over the latest developments in the ongoing battle with the HOA. The city's investigation into the HOA's financial practices had sent shockwaves through the community, effectively putting Karen Wilkins and her team on the defensive. For now, Emily's driveway remained classified as a public thoroughfare, beyond the HOA's control. But Emily knew that this was only a temporary reprieve. Karen and the HOA would not take this lying down, and she was certain that they were already plotting their next move. As if on cue, Emily's phone began to ring. She glanced at the caller ID and immediately felt a chill run down her spine. It was her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Pemberton. "Emily, you need to come outside right away." The older woman's voice was frantic, laced with a hint of panic. "What's wrong, Mrs. Pemberton?" Emily asked, already rising from her chair. "It's your car. It's been vandalized." Emily raced out the front door, her heart pounding. As she stepped onto the driveway, she gasped in horror. Her once pristine sit-in was covered in scratches, the tires slashed, and the windshield shattered. Scrawled across the driver's side door, in large, angry letters, were the words, Diaz vias ent over, si en cielaire. Emily's hands trembled as she surveyed the damage, her mind racing with the implications. This was no random act of vandalism. This was a clear message from the HOA, a warning that they would stop at nothing to regain control. She quickly called the police, her voice shaking as she reported the incident. Within minutes, the cul-de-sac was teeming with officers, their flashing lights casting an eerie glow over the scene. As the investigators collected evidence, Emily couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. She knew that the HOA was capable of even more sinister acts, and she feared for the safety of her family and her home. With a heavy heart, she returned to her house, her mind consumed by the thought of what the HOA might do next. She knew that the battle lines had been drawn, and that the fight for the future of Oakwood was only just beginning. As the sun set over the quiet cul-de-sac, Emily gazed out the window, her eyes narrowed with determination. "This isn't over, Karen," she whispered. "I'm not going down without a fight." The weeks that followed the attack on Emily Sinclair's car were filled with a palpable sense of unease in the Oakwood neighborhood. The city's investigation into the HOA's financial practices was ongoing, and the tension between Emily and the HOA's leadership continued to simmer beneath the surface. Emily had taken every precaution to protect her home and her family, installing security cameras and reinforcing her doors and windows. But she knew that Karen Wilkins and the HOA were not the kind of adversaries to be deterred by mere physical barriers. One night, as Emily was preparing for bed, her security system suddenly sprang to life, the alarm blaring through the silent house. Grabbing a baseball bat, she cautiously made her way downstairs, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached the front door, she could see the flickering of shadows outside and the distinct sound of hushed voices. Steeling her nerves, she flung the door open, ready to confront the intruders. But what she saw made her heart skip a beat. There, standing on her doorstep, were Karen Wilkins and several members of the HOA board, their faces twisted with a mixture of rage and desperation. "What is the meaning of this?" Emily demanded, her grip tightening on the bat. Karen stepped forward, her eyes narrowed to slits. "You've gone too far, Emily. This neighborhood is ours, and we won't let you or anyone else take it from us." Emily's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about? I'm not the one breaking the law here. You are." Karen's lips curled into a sinister grin. "Oh, but we are. And we have the evidence to prove it." She produced a thick stack of documents, her fingers drumming against the pages. "These are copies of the financial records that your precious city investigation has been looking for. And guess what? They prove that the HOA has been perfectly transparent and accountable with its funds." Emily's eyes widened, a chill running down her spine. "That's impossible." The city's council said. "The city's council is a fool," Karen interrupted, her voice dripping with contempt. "We've been one step ahead of them the entire time. And now, it's time to put an end to your little rebellion." She gestured to the HOA board members, who quickly surged forward, their faces set with grim determination. Emily tried to slam the door, but the intruders were too fast. They burst into the house, swarming her like a pack of wolves. Emily fought back with all her might, swinging the bat wildly, but the sheer numbers of the HOA members were overwhelming. As she felt her strength waning, Emily knew that she was facing her darkest hour. The fate of her home, her neighborhood, and her very way of life hung in the balance. But she refused to go down without a fight. With a last burst of defiance, she lashed out, catching one of the HOA members square in the jaw. The man stumbled back, clutching his face in pain, and for a moment, Emily saw a glimmer of hope. But then, from the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of Karen, her face contorted with rage as she raised a familiar object, a taser. Emily's eyes widened in horror, and just as she opened her mouth to scream, the world went black. The fate of Oakwood was now in the hands of the ruthless HOA, and Emily Sinclair's fight for justice had come to a shocking and unexpected conclusion.